3, 2, 1, go. Welcome to the collective today. We have legendary strength and conditioning coach Bill Foran, and we also have, who do we have on today? We have Jacob Behara. He is a sports scientist with AFSOC, or United States Air Force Special Operations Command. He's also a contractor. Justin Schwind. I am the human performance advisor for 58 Sal with AFSOC. I'm also a contractor with KBR. And Darius Ducre, he is he's the head strength and conditioning coach for the 58 Sal with AFSOC, and he's also a contractor with KBR. Other than that, very fortunate to have on Coach. And Coach, what I want you to do is share you in 2.5 minutes.
Hopefully I can do it in 2.5 minutes. Thank you. I was a high school football coach at a small school in Michigan. It was the smallest school in the conference, and they hadn't had a winning season in years. And so I'm looking at the athletes, and I thought, I got to make these athletes better. And this was in the late 70s. And I started a strength and conditioning program, and we started winning. And I learned then I liked developing athletes more than the X's and O's of the game. And I lived, the school was about a half hour from Michigan State, and I'd meet with their strength coach and get information and talk. And he always said, he says, Bill, you're the only high school coach that comes around. And then he needed a grad assistant. And I was taking classes in exercise phys, working on my master's program, taking a class a semester, and I could become the grad assistant and finish my degree. And so I became the first grad assistant in strength and conditioning at Michigan State. And it doesn't happen like this anymore, but the summer I graduated, 1981, there were 2 openings at the college level, Mississippi State and Washington State. And I went from a grad assistant to the head strength coach at a Pac-10 school, which is kind of crazy when you look back at it now. And they had not been to a bowl game in 50 years, the 1931 Rose Bowl. And it's amazing if you just have a fundamentally sound program that the players buy into, good things happen. Well, we started winning and got to a bowl game, and I was there 4 years, and that got me to the University of Miami. And we had a nice 5-year run, 55-5, 2 national championships, 2 number 2s. Which was a pretty amazing run. And then the Heat came to town. In their first year, they practiced at University of Miami, and they approached me about helping the team, and the university allowed me to do that. And so they would work out there. I'd go to the games, help them after the games. They approached me to come on full time after that first season that I was a consultant. And at that time, I had 1 assistant, 18 teams. That's how it was back then. It was just crazy schedule. I could move up to the pro level with 15 athletes. Even though we were having a nice run at Miami, I knew this would be a pretty good thing. And then that was, the first year was 88, 89, full-time starting in the summer of 89. And then Pat Riley came in 1995 and just changed everything for us. But a real quick story, my very first meeting with him, he told me he's into 2 things. He's into fundamentals and conditioning. And if you have those 2 things, you have a chance. And really, anything in life, if you're fundamentally sound and you're ready for it, good things happen. Our second meeting, he said, and I've always been big into weight and body fat with athletes, make sure they're at world-class conditioning level. And I always checked once a month. And he said, I want you to check weight, body fats weekly. And I thought, that's overkill, but we never have surprises. But then he said to me, he said, you don't have to worry about the ectomorphs. And I thought, that's a pretty big word for a head coach. And then he says, keep your eye on the mesomorphs. He says, spend your time with the fatty morphs. Pretty good line. So anyway, 32 seasons with the Heat and 3 world championships, and here we are. So hopefully, was that 2.5 minutes?
I love it, Coach. I would think it's crazy. You've been a part of such a great dynasty with the Heat, and you've been fortunate to be there pretty much your whole career. But there's so many things I think today that we'll unpack as we kind of go through this about that, and I think it's valuable with that. So thank you for that, Coach. Real quick, I got a multi-layered question for you today that I want you to kind of see if you can dive into. Again, any of these questions, I really appreciate your stories because I think that's how people tell who they are. I think that's how people relate and understand the most about them. Tribally, if you look back prehistoric times, that's how knowledge and information was passed down. So please feel free to share that today as you go. First things first, what motivates you as a coach currently? What originally motivated you when you got into this? Has that changed over the years? And then second part of that question is, how do you motivate your staff? And has that changed over the
years? Yeah, good point. First, I mentioned how I saw the difference in developing the athletes versus the X's and O's, and I really wanted to help athletes become better. And that hasn't changed 4 decades in, and I still am excited about helping the athletes become better athletes. So what was the next?
How do you motivate your staff?
It's interesting because my staff, because for years in the NBA, it was just one strength and conditioning coach. And so I kind of ran the show. But my son, he was an athlete at University of Florida, and getting his master's degree in exercise phys, he needed an internship, and we didn't do internships. But Pat Riley said, "Yeah, we'll make sure he can do an internship, and we'll make sure it's a paid internship." So I thought he was going to be there for a semester. A semester turned into a year. He was interned for 2 years, and then they asked him to come on as my assistant. So the staff became my son and I, and I've backed off a little bit, and he's taken over. So it's really his staff now. So Eric is the head strength and conditioning coach, and I'm kind of his assistant right now, helping him out. My title is strength and conditioning consultant, and I wanted that because the first year with the Heat as a consultant, and then I thought the last year, but I've been a consultant for 2-3 years now. So as far as motivating, it's kind of cool. Eric lives about 1.5 miles from me. We live about 45 minutes from the arena. He comes over, picks me up in the morning. We'll listen to a podcast or talk about the day. So it's just kind of a cool relationship, father-son relationship, working together, trying to make athletes better. So it's kind of unique and kind of fun.
I think you can't get any better than that. And some days probably not, but some days it's probably like, this is what I always dreamed about. That's cool. Thanks, Coach. Coach Ducre?
Coach, definitely I want to state that it's an honor and a pleasure to be able to speak with you, first and foremost. Given your time in the field, how have you seen the field develop, and where do you think that we're heading in the future? Especially, as you said, that there were at the time only 2 strength coaches upon your entry into the industry, and how the industry has grown to present day. I'd like to get your feedback on that, please.
Yes, it really has changed. And the big things, you look at the staffs now, there might be 5 to 10 strength coaches at football alone. Basketball has full-time. And so it's really improved with the numbers and the salaries. I look at some of the college football salaries and what they're talking about. We were winning national championships, making $30,000 a year back in the 80s. Now they're making $500,000 plus, so it's really grown in a good way. In research, you look at the research that's going on in strength and conditioning and sports science, everything is just getting better and better. On the negative side, then you look at social media and all the hype that comes with this now, and everybody tries to outdo everybody with a fancy exercise online. The big thing now is fundamentals work. Like Pat said, fundamentals and conditioning.
Jacob?
Yeah, again, glad to have you on, Coach Foran. So you mentioned sports science. What is the Miami Heat utilizing in terms of like objective or subjective measures for recovery, performance, et cetera?
Good question. We have a analytics group, and as far as wearables in the NBA, the Players Association came out that players don't necessarily have to wear these things if they don't want to, because some thought they were using it against them when actually we want them to be at their best. And so we've tried different wearables, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But we do a lot in the recovery aspect, and that's a big area now in sports science. And I tell them, our athletes, number one recovery is sleep. It's so important. And there's a study out of Stanford with sleep with their basketball team, their men's basketball team. And all they did, they were averaging about 6.5 hours of sleep a night for the players. They got them up over 8. They increased their sleep about 110 minutes per night. And their three-point shooting went up 9%, free throws 11%. Across the board, everything is better. So sleep is number one. Then number two, nutrition. Nutrition is so important for energy, for recovery. And one of the big things is trying to get them to eat less sugar because all the sugar, their focus is just, I can tell young kids coming in as rookies that are hooked on sugar, they just don't get it. They can't pay attention. It's crazy. And the ones that get it and eat right, you know, they're true professionals, and also the injury rates go down. There's good information on injury rates and sleep. So sleep, nutrition are huge. Now recovery, we'll do the Normatec boots, we'll do Mark Pro. We have a neuromuscular therapist. We do flush rides. Try to do all those things, but recovery is huge.
Great. So how would you educate your professional athletes on sleep?
Talk to them all the time about it, because there's some guys that get it and some guys that burn a candle, and you can tell. And when they come in and they have no energy and they're trying to get through a workout or a practice, that's a good time to talk to them about it. And what I tell them is, I'm here to help you. I want you to be great. And for you to be great, your behavior has to match you wanting to become great. And let's take a look at a few things. Here's some simple things. It's on you. It's not on the coaches. It's on you. Sleep and nutrition are the two big ones. You want to be great? Let's start being great in those two areas.
Absolutely agree. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Coach, a real quick question for you. How would you describe your coaching style? And has it changed over the years? And I say that, I'll give you a quick story about myself. I'll always share it with all the coaches I talk to. When I first got on this, I like to say I was full of piss and vinegar. And I every day I was just excited to be there. And I thought that was the motivating factor for the kids. And that excitement I brought over to more, or the longer I've been in this field, my style of coaching has been a little more from an eagle eyes view, I guess, or from the satellite view, where I want to see the room and see how everybody is for the day. And every day is a little bit different to attack the day with it. I might have to have energy one day. One day I might have to come in and I literally might just have to tell them what's on the board and let them have the atmosphere, let them have the room. So I guess I used to be in your face, and I've kind of taken more of the back side of the room to know where I'm at, especially when I start the day. So that's me personally. That's my story. Really, I want to hear yours, Coach.
Yeah, that's kind of like I think everybody starting out. Back in the day at the college level, there was a lot of screaming and yelling, which went with the territory. At the pro level now, with the number of athletes we have, we try to set it up where we have 4 athletes in at a time, scheduled 2 groups before practice, 2 after practice. Eric handles 2 guys, I handle 2 guys, so it's more hands-on, but we try to be extremely positive with lots of communication and get to know the players, find out who their influencers are, find out what makes them tick. And the more you know about people, it helps as you're training them and working with them. So yeah, it's changed over the years, but we try to keep a very positive atmosphere.
That's great.
Coach, you're speaking about getting to know the players and what makes them tick. What's been some other methods or ways that you've been able to generate buy-in from your athletes, especially dealing with the caliber of athletes you're working with, even in the beginning, early stages with working with the Miami Heat, knowing that in the past there was this big, I guess you could say, myth or misconception that lifting weights is going to make, guys slower, and that type of deal.
Good point. I got a story about our very first draft pick. Ronnie Cycli was a center out of Syracuse, 6'10", 230 pounds, comes to the Heat, and the Heat's an expansion team. First year, and we went with the youth movement, and so Ronnie started as a rookie in the NBA, not physically ready at all. But his very first time he walked into the weight room, he says to me, "I'm ready to work out, but I don't squat." And I said, "Well, we're doing a split routine. We're doing upper body today. We're going to do lower body tomorrow, and we squat differently here." That's all I said. We did the workout. Next day, that caught his attention because the next day he comes in and he says, "How do you squat differently?" I said, "We squat correctly." And so a guy, sorry about the dog in the background. We're getting a FedEx package. It'll quiet down in just a second here. So in that first year, we couldn't, the season started 82 games. He became working at it. But his first year, he struggled. He was only 230 pounds. And so to his credit, the next off season, he did not miss it. He stayed in Miami 16 weeks, 4-day split, did not miss a workout, went from 230 to 252, stayed the same 8% body fat, increased his vertical jump from 27 inches to 30 inches, and was voted the most improved player in the league. So it was good. One, the Heat saw what strength and conditioning can do to an athlete. So it was perfect timing. We get a guy who comes in, starts, and he's weak and not big enough, and they keep the strength coach around for a while. So that's the starting point, trying to think of some others. I had a young athlete come in his rookie year. He was overweight, he's about 12% body fat, a point guard. I'd like to keep the point guards under 8%. He didn't move real well, good college player, and he got him down under 8%, got stronger, got quicker. The coaches were amazed how he moved compared to when he got there in August to middle of the season. He was becoming a basketball player. Well, at the end of the season, he probably was the biggest turnaround that year of all the athletes. At the end of the season, he comes to him and he said, I don't think I made much progress. I think I'm going to get a personal trainer. I just started laughing. I couldn't believe it. What are you talking about? You were from here to here. So you got to take a look at what's in their mind. He didn't think he made progress, and the coaches couldn't believe his turnaround. So I had to sit down with him and give him the numbers, show him that. But it's funny, in the pro world, some athletes, they think they have to have their own guy. But when they have their own guy, they can control their own guy. And we have a pretty hard conditioning test at the beginning of the season. And if they're around and prepare for it, everybody passes it. But the guys that aren't around with their own guy, they don't pass the conditioning test.
Coach Burrow. Jacob, you got it.
So I'm sure this is the question that a lot of people are asking right now is, but in terms of the NBA players, how are you dealing with the pandemic situation in terms of keeping them in playing shape?
Okay, you broke up for just a second, but I got the question. What we're doing is my son Eric has a Zoom workout 5 days a week from 11 to 12:30. Everybody has some dumbbells, they have some bands, they have an exercise bike, and they get on and he'll put them through a workout. It's not like a normal workout because of the equipment we have, but they're doing something. And so they're maintaining some strength. They're doing some good intervals on the bike. So they're doing something. And I mentioned we're a big weight and body fat team. For 6 weeks, we didn't mention at all anything about weight, but last week Eric checked in and wanted, get on the scale, shoot a picture of it, and everybody's within where they need to be. So that's the big thing. If we do come back and guys are 10 pounds overweight, that's 2, 3, 4 weeks just to get back down to the right weight and go from there. But we're ahead of the game there. One of the things that concerns me is this is probably the longest they've gone being healthy without playing basketball, without jumping. So coming back into it, that jumping concerns me. I want to make sure that tendon health and that we bring them back correctly because this is something that's never happened before. Guys aren't playing when they're healthy. And so that's one of the big things we're looking at. We're supposed to open up next Wednesday where 4 athletes can be in the building at one time and start getting back that way. So we'll see, but we gotta be smart, common sense, and ramp them up slowly.
Great, thank you very much.
Yes.
All right, Coach, real quick question for you. How do you, and kind of tacked it a little bit, but how do you promote and encourage innovative ideas, innovative approaches? Obviously, when you started it for the Miami Heat, and what I mean by that is to now, technology, there's a lot more technology available. There's the efficiency of the patterns of the machines have probably gotten better. You might even learn some technical things that are even better or new. And I know especially at the professional level, they've done a certain thing for so long to get to where they have or where they are with success. So to make that statement for something new to come along, that's a hard eggshell to crack. So there has to be certain things or certain approaches that you have to do, especially when you really believe in it. You're talking about sleep. There was a certain nutritional component to it. If there's a certain wearable piece to it, like what do you do? How do you go about kind of promoting those ideas and increasing that buy-in piece?
The buy-in now that the athletes, the millennial athletes are different than the athletes I've had in the 80s and 90s, and they like the more hands-on stuff. They like more variety. So we can bring in more things because that's kind of what they're into. They don't want to stay, if it was just bench squat and power cleans, they're not into that. They're into variety. So we got to bring in unique things, but make sure it's still functional and fundamentally sound. And some of the things, like in the weight room, some technology, the Nord board that measures hamstring levels, that's kind of new. In the groin bar, same thing. And we have some Kaiser rack. This is Samson talk because I don't mention Samson, but I've dealt with Samson for years and years. It started with Dave and Linda, and now it's Brian and Scott. So love their equipment, but we also have other equipment. But with the Kaiser, you can measure power now. and you can't do that with the free weight stuff. So we are doing more measuring in the weight room. Plus, for years with one person, you couldn't do a lot of things. But now, as more strength coaches are around, you can take a look at the technology and utilize more things.
Thanks, Coach. Coach Ducre.
Yes, sir, Coach. One thing that's very special about basketball and certain other sports, you guys have a very, very long in season, very, very intense. What are some methods that you utilize in keeping your guys healthy and able to perform in the highest caliber?
Good question. Athletes got to be strong. When they're strong and durable, chances of injuries go down, as you know. And so with our crazy schedule, we'll have 3 games and 4 nights and travel. They still have to lift. We'll have to back off on it, but we still have to do the work. And that's a big thing, is to get across to them that it's 1 for their performance, but 2 for injury prevention. But you still have to get in the work. And in our season, in season, some guys like to lift on game days, and they feel good about it, so they can get a day in there. Because recovery days, if you're having 4 games in a week and you need some recovery days, where are you going to lift? You still have to get some lifts in. So the off days, some guys lift on the off days. A good way to do it that I like is guys come in after games and get it in, so then the next day can be complete recovery. So it's a challenge. It's unique because we utilize whatever, if they like to lift on game days. Some guys don't want to touch game days, then we got to get them in on their off days. So it's tricky, but everything's individualized because of the numbers we have, so we make it work. But yeah, it's a crazy tough schedule, but if you back off too much, then they get weak and injuries happen, and you go into the playoffs and they're not strong. You want them at their best when it counts, and that's at the playoff time. So you got to maintain a strength program.
Thank you, Coach.
Yes.
Coach Behara.
So during these times, I know it's kind of hard to stay on the continuing education aspect of our development, but what are you doing right now for continuing education, or what do you like to do for that?
Podcasts and books are my big things right now. So I enjoy listening to a variety of podcasts, looking at different books. Right now, I'm jumping in. I don't know if you've heard the book Boundless by, I don't know if you know Ben Greenfield. He's kind of out there on the internet. He's more of a biohacker, but it's like a 600-page book, covers optimizing the brain, strength, anti-aging, covers everything. So maybe the anti-aging caught my attention. I don't know. But I'm taking a deep look at that right now.
That's great. And yeah, I've heard of Ben Greenfield. Not too familiar with him, but like what's caught your eye in that book so far?
You know what? He came in. He has a friend of our head coach, Eric Spolstra, and came in and met with Eric and I in the weight room. And he said, I don't want to talk about the weight training aspect, but let's take a look at what you can do to be better in here with better lighting, better air, and better water quality. And so when I first met him, that's what he talked about. And we look at our lighting in our arena. We're based at the arena. Our arena, 20 years old, and the lighting was from then. And so we're looking at energy lighting. There's different lighting sciences out there now. So lighting that gives you more energy, that perks you up, because we don't have the direct sunlight into the weight room. So that was interesting. The lighting caught my eye. And then quality water he talked about. So we do have a system now so that it's filtered through. with better water, and then the air quality, and those things caught my eye in the weight room. We came up, the company Molecule has these that not only just improves the air, but actually can get rid of mold. So that was interesting. That caught my eye with Ben, and started following him. But his book covers everything.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
And Coach, I know who you're talking about. He's a nut, awesome, crazy. It's like so crazy extreme the way he does things, and like he'll take a certain method. I remember he was talking about a certain chemical, and he started breathing it every day. And it was supposed to help with his overall red blood cell count piece, and doing that daily. And he's gone down these different eating pathways. And yeah, he's like, I'll do anything and everything to find the cleanest, most efficient way. I follow him on Instagram, and
Okay.
he's crazy. It's cool to see it, and I really start to learn about his red light, infrared light. When you start infrared light sauna components, that's what really turned me on to that. And he's on another level, and what he's willing to do to himself, and it's pretty awesome. So real quick, here's my next piece to you, Coach. So what are some key elements that you look for in a successful coach? You know, when I say that, players, staff, kind of what role do you play in really instituting that culture? Because I say that because you've done what a lot of coaches have never been able to experience, which win a championship. And sometimes what's crazy is, like, I've talked to Coach Vermillion, he said there's years where they've won championships, and there's years they didn't, but at the same time, maybe thought they had better teams on other years, but it just clicked. So what, in that big, long statement for you, kind of, I want to hear your insight on that.
For me, with young coaches, it'd be work ethic. Number one, you got to have a work ethic. You got to have a positive attitude, and you got to get along with people. And if you have those things, you know, you got to have your degrees, your certifications. But if you got your master's degree and you got your certifications and you can't get along with people, it's not going to work. The positive attitude is so important. A work ethic is so important, and getting along with people. If you have those, you have a chance to do something.
Coach Cree?
Yes, sir. Staying on topic with the young coaches, what's some of the good and bad that you've been able to see during your career with some of the young coaches? They're dealing with athletes, even their coaching style, and how can those coaches improve as our industry continues to develop and expand?
In the NBA, you got to be flexible, and you got to roll with the punches, so to speak, because if it's a lifting day and the coach says nothing's going on today, it's recovery day, you got to go with it. Well, I haven't had a staff other than my son, but other stories from the NBA, one strength and conditioning coach, he was highly motivated, he's into it, it's so important, he's got to do it, and his coach told him it's a day off. And he told his coach, what? They have to, no, complete rest. He worked him out anyway. The head coach said, don't do anything. And this guy was so into his job that we got to do it. Well, at the end of that year, he was gone. So you got to be smart and roll with the punches. But that's when you just got to have some common sense, listen to your head coach, but also explain to the head coach the importance of strength and conditioning. But one day, I get it. The coach wanted complete recovery. Okay. He didn't think they needed it, and it cost him. So you got to be smart.
Coach, thank you. What I want to do is leave this last part really up to you. And then what I mean by that is, you know, we've asked you a lot of questions. We've shot them off at you, boom, 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 and really heard your insight and your wisdom. But this is the point in time where I want you to be you. I want you to share what I call, this is my knowledge nugget section, or your knowledge nugget section. We're able to share, I guess, anything you want to share with us. If it's something that the community of coaches really feel like they need to hear, if it's a story that really will relate to everybody, anything. This is you. This is your platform right here, Coach. So there you go.
Thank you. The Miami Heat is kind of known in the NBA worlds that they have a culture and they do things a certain way, and everybody knows about they have to do weight and body fat on a weekly basis, but we call it world-class conditioning, and world-class conditioning involves being at the correct weight and correct body fat. When Shaq came to town, he got a little heavy with the Lakers, and they ended up trading him to the Heat. And he came in and bought into the weight and body fat thing, dropped 46 pounds. 46 pounds, and got down where he could move again and helped us win our first championship. So that's one example of the importance of that. We had another athlete. He's been in the league 8 years, comes to the Heat. He's been on a few different teams. He was always, he's a good athlete, but he always carried a little too much weight. And he made he's making $1 to $2 million a year, which is pretty good. But he comes in, he's 14.5% body fat. We get him down to 6.5%. Career year, rebounds, assists, steals, points, signs a $60 million contract. So the importance of being in world-class condition is key in that. Weight and body fat is so important. So that's one thing I try to get across. That I see even at the pro level, watching the games, really good players about 10 pounds too heavy. Just think if they were just a little, getting a little better condition. We had Tim Hardaway, all-star back in the 90s with us, but we monitored back then, we monitored performance with weight and body fat. And when he was above 8% body fat, just up 0.5%, could see a difference in performance. Under 8%, his performance. So it's so key to get into world-class shape to be the best you can be. So that's one thing. Another thing, I don't know if you guys heard, a book came out. It's called The Golden Age of Strength and Conditioning. And you had to be a head college strength coach in the 80s to be in this book. And there's 32 strength coaches that just told their story. And it's really cool. It came out last year. You've already heard my story, but I mention it because I read Johnny Parker's story, and it is truly amazing. So when I give a book away or whatever, I always tell people, read Johnny Parker's story first. So that's one thing for strength and conditioning coaches. It's pretty interesting to see what we went through in the 80s and 90s. And like I mentioned, one assistant for 18 teams, not getting paid very much, but those were classic years. So it's really grown, but that's an interesting book for strength and conditioning coaches.
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to get to know Coach Parker through Coach Vermeil, and I got to spend a whole week with him, actually. I had him speak at a clinic of mine about 5 years ago, and just to hear him, crap, he worked for, best, if not the best, one of the best college basketball coaches of all time. Worked for, if not the best, if not the best NFL coaches of all time. And just to be able to attach yourself to that double whammy piece, kind of like Coach Vermeil. Worked for Bill Walsh, and work for freaking Phil Jackson. It's like mind-blowing how you can work for such successful coaches in two different elements of the game too.
Exactly.
Football and basketball. So just to hear that piece was pretty awesome, and really fortunate to know him.
Did he tell a story about growing up? He was a junior high teacher and coach. Did he ever tell those stories?
Yeah, he talked about that and going down to Baton Rouge and learning from Alvin Roy and all the ins and outs of that, and how he built all his foundation.
Yeah, his story is amazing. So
him and Al Miller too. It's kind of like I got to know him and Rob Perinella and all those guys. All started off with Coach Vermeil. I saw him on a conference one year. I said, "Hey, I'd love to have you down one day."
Wow.
And he came and spend a half a week with my staff when I was coaching in the college setting. The next year I had Coach Miller, and then next year I had Coach Parker, and then I also after that I had I did several phone conversations with Rob Perinella.
Okay.
And I actually, the one year they did like this Legends Roundtable up in New York, I had, short story though, I had a flight done, and I went and I booked what I've learned from this is never book the lowest cost airline period. And I booked a low cost airline. I show up and it's 48 minutes before the flight takes off, and they make you log into your kiosk. Well, it wasn't taking my code. So by the time I figured it out, I went up to the counter, and it was 44 minutes before the flight started. They said, "We can't let you on." And I'm like, "They haven't even boarded yet." And I went straight to the kiosk, and they said no. So I missed that conference, and I literally hit my head against the wall because I was going to go see all those guys who I already knew, but spend a whole 2 days with the legends, such as yourself. And I say that, I don't say it to talk down or to think that you're old of any which way, but there's a lot of wisdom. And I think that in this, that what I value today is the wisdom you're able to instill upon us as coaches, because we all make mistakes. We're human, right? And what you've done to definitely build that will, you've learned how to build a will the most efficient way for you. But you can tell us the different ways that when we try to build our will, because we're still trying to hone the perfect will in our mind. Well, really, it's not perfect, optimal will in our mind, in which way, shape, or form. And I'm thankful that we can listen to your lessons and your stories, because I think that's the most valuable part about this whole component is the story piece. Again,
I've got one more story.
Go ahead.
Story of you. And this was early years. I mentioned how Ronnie Cycli became a good squatter. Well, along in those same years, our shooting guard at that time as well didn't like to squat, and I was trying to get him to squat. And we're playing. This is our second year. My first full-time year. It's November of the second year of the Heat, and we're playing the Showtime Lakers. And, of course, we get blown out by about 40 points. And our head coach the next day in practice asked this player, he says, "What happened last night?" He says, "Oh, Bill made me squat. My legs were sore." The coach wanted to fire me on the spot. The guy didn't want to squat, so he threw me under the bus. But it was a good lesson I was forcing him, not heavy, just working on technique work. But to get out of it, he threw me under the bus. But I learned a good lesson there is timing's important on when you're trying to develop something with an athlete, especially if they're fighting you a little bit. Don't keep pushing. So I learned that lesson early.
Thanks, Coach. So kind of want to value your time and wrap it up. We're hitting right on the hour. What I want to say, first things first, I know we all will reiterate that if you guys want to chime in, thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for today. Thank you for I value every bit of this. And what's awesome is because we're recording this, I can watch this over and over and over again. I have access to that. And thank you for us being able to have this professional relationship and me getting to meet you for the first time too.
Yeah, it's surprising we haven't crossed paths.
Yes, sir.
These years, but I'm glad we're doing it now.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Coach. If anybody else wants to say anything, feel free. But otherwise, thanks again, Coach, for today.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.